Good morning. My name is Adam. I'm a designer at Facebook, and I'd like to talk today a little bit about how Facebook's changed over the years and how we think about messaging those changes. I started about 3 years ago, and I was super optimistic and a little naive, and this was my first project. It was a redesign of Home with a bunch of other guys, and I was really excited about it. It focused on voice, it focused on recency, it focused on simplicity. I loved it, and I thought people would love it. It sort of seemed like it was just better. It turned out I was wrong. People were super, super angry about this. I got a lot of flack about it when I go to parties from people who found out I worked on it. Feedback was mostly full of expletives and diatribes. And it was pretty intense, pretty significant user reaction. And the press actually echoed that sentiment. The press covered the user reaction, which then inflamed more press and more user reaction. This poll, this headline says 94% of users don't like the redesign. Now remember, I was 4 months into Facebook, brand new, super, super new. This is my first big launch, super, super bummed. I didn't understand the magnitude of the reaction. I didn't understand why people didn't like it. I sort of took for granted what was good about it. But then I heard a statistic, which is that of users who log in today, they spend an average of 45 minutes on Facebook. And to wrap my head around this, I thought, well, if I spent 45 minutes at my desk every day, and this is actually my desk, organizing my photos, messaging my friends, keeping up to speed with what I thought was important, I'd probably feel a pretty significant sense of ownership over that space. And if somebody just rearranged that desk, especially if they rearranged it without asking me, I thought, well, what would that experience be like? It would be startling, it would be frustrating. And that started to help me wrap my head around what users were going through. Users were pissed, the same way I think you probably would be pissed. They were pissed because they had to relearn to do the things they already knew how to do. They were pissed because they felt a sense of entitlement. They felt it was theirs and it was changed without asking them. And that was legitimate. That was a real experience. And sometimes this took form in my friends giving me grief, and sometimes it was like this, which is pretty extreme. This is a real group on Facebook with over 1,000 members. It's called I Automatically Hate the New Facebook Homepage. But it's legitimate. It's real negative experiences that are fueling the sentiment. So why do we put people through this? Why do we put ourselves through this? The short answer is that progress is super, super important to us. And real innovation can't happen without substantial change. So not changing things is not really an option for us. And as we realized that, and as we realized that these reactions were legitimate, we started to take more seriously and really think about how can we better manage these transitions. And we've come up with a number of things. We've gotten a little bit better at this over the years, but there's 2 things I'll talk about briefly today. The first is reacting proactively to people's feedback. And this is sort of ironically well exemplified by a launch that didn't go very well. So the original newsfeed in 2006, the idea was that users we saw were going from profile to profile to profile to see what was new. And we thought it would be great to collect all that awesome content and bring it back up to the users for the homepage. We thought it was so great, in fact, that this was all of our messaging. 3 lines of great text, a button that you had to press that said awesome, and then you were in. We thought it was great. We thought it was easy. We thought it made the site and the experience better. We thought users would like it. And again, we weren't particularly accurate. These are all designers at Facebook, by the way. People were really, really, really angry, and for sort of reasonable reasons. And we tried to listen to their feedback. Now, it would have been better to do this up front as opposed to react in a reactionary sort of mode. But we did make an attempt anyway, and that was to provide users with more control over what did and did not show up in their news feeds. And this mitigated the reaction. It was still bumpy for sure, but it helped. And it helped a lot, and hopefully we'd do it earlier next time. But for us, the major takeaway was that value isn't always obvious. It's obvious to us because we eat, breathe, live, and sleep this stuff all day long. We argue about it, but it's not always obvious to the users. And what we've tried to experiment as we've launched more and more new things is being super, super, super explicit. This might be the most memorable piece of marketing that I can think of. I want you for the US Army. Your country needs you. It's direct, it's to the point, you understand it immediately. And we've begun to think about how can we bring what's good about this to how we message new products. So if you remember the new profile that we launched a few months ago, we actually designed this tour that pointed out each new piece and explained what was new and why it was there. Which was a new thing for us. Historically, we haven't invested to this degree in user education. But the results happen to be pretty favorable. We found that of people who we pushed through the tour and people we didn't allow through the tour, people who went through the tour were more likely to prefer the new profile, more likely to understand the new profile, and over the long term, actually use the profile more, which is pretty great and pretty significant for us, where it seems hard to move these types of things. So our brand lives and dies by the expectations that we meet and don't meet in the product. And you'll hopefully see us continue to better manage those expectations as we continue to try to push things forward and progress. So thanks for your time, guys.